What is up? Welcome back to another episode of the Found Her podcast. I'm your host, Kelly, and I'm so glad that you're here. I'm going to start doing a new thing. I just want to give updates on my life, even though there's not many, and maybe hot takes before every episode, because instead of just coming on and preaching at you, just give you 2-3 minutes of an update. So, not that there is crazy things happening, but it's obviously the holiday season. I know holidays can be either really exciting or really tough for a lot of people. For me, I'm feeling indifferent this year. I'm just nah, I don't know. It's the holidays with my family are great, but it's kind of depressing because it's literally just I'm at that middle age where I haven't had kids yet. My sister hasn't had kids yet. My cousins all have kids and they're grown up, and so they're doing their own holiday things. That literally our Christmas celebration is my parents and I, my sister, her husband, and my grandma, which is great. But I'm just we need some children. We need something to switch it up. I'm over being the youngest person there, you know? I don't know. Other fun thing I did this week is which goes against everything I believe in, but not actually. I downloaded a Hinge. You guys, I saw a TikTok success story, and everybody that comes into my work says that they met their person on Hinge. And I hate, when I tell you I hate dating apps so much, they make me want to crawl and out of my skin and just But I was you know what, we're just gonna roll with it, see what happens, and go from there. So I've downloaded dating apps. And then the other thing I have realized lately that I was talking to my friend about the other day is somebody needs to host a masterclass for men about keeping expectations low when it comes to talking to women. I don't know what it is, but there has been 2 or 3 different scenarios in my life recently. I talked to this guy back in the summer. Same thing happened with him. I just recently met this guy at Thanksgiving, and he did the same shit. But guys are literally overhyping themselves and overhyping expectations, and I just don't get it. They'll be oh, I am ready to date you, I'm gonna come visit you, I'm gonna take you on a date, we are gonna go here, we are gonna do this. And then you're just all right, it's not I was asking for it. I'm just okay, sounds great. And then in your head you're okay, this is gonna happen. And then they just ghost, or do not follow up on it whatsoever. And I'm what was the point in that? All of us women would have been just fine. And I know there's majority women listening to this. I think 3% of my audience is men. So I'm just talking to ladies here. But men, literally, I'm just why don't you guys just keep the expectations low? You would look better. If your goal is to try to get a girl to it's already not going to happen, regardless if you say you're going to take them on a date or not. If their mind is made up, they're not doing it. That's not going to make it better. It's just so funny. I will sit and have a long form conversation with the guy and be oh, so much potential here. And then they'll promise me all these things. And I'll be oh, exciting. And then the next day it's radio silence. I'm just we all would have been better off if you just would have been yourself from the jump and been you know what, this is what I'm looking for. I'm not willing to take you on a date. I don't want to. I'm literally just trying to talk to you tonight to entertain myself. I would be I would respect it so much more. I just laugh because I'm I just don't get it. What are you guys doing? Why are you thinking it's a better idea to create this false reality and then turn around and be never mind. I don't know. That's just my realization. I was talking to my friend. She's you need to talk about that on the podcast because that's funny. I'm we're all in it together. So if you're dating and guys keep getting your expectation or your hopes up for absolutely no reason and then turning around and just going the opposite way, it's crazy. I feel it was not like this back in the day. The last 3 men I've talked to all did the same shit. I'm just okay, we're good. We're done. But updates will continue on how Hinge goes for me. But today we're talking about a topic that I feel a lot of us go through. Obviously, this whole podcast, I created it to create a community of people that just can work through the journey of finding yourself and realize that you're not alone in a lot of the stuff that you do go through on the journey to finding yourself, because it can be lonely. But the main thing is that I'm talking about today is growing out of past relationship or friendships. And that one is probably the one that I talk to people about the most, and they're just it's just such an uncomfortable part of your life because you grow and evolve and you change. And naturally, as that happens, you're gonna grow out of people. Like in high school and in college, I think all of us had so many friends. Like we just went out all the time downtown, and you probably ran into like 20, 30 people that you saw regularly because you're going out like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And you're seeing all these people and you're having so much fun and whatever. But then as you get older and you kind of stop doing those things, you just naturally grow out of friendships, and it starts to become like you almost blame yourself, and you're like, oh my God, why do I not have as many friends as I did before? It's normal. Like if you talk to any grown adult, they're all just like, your circle just gets smaller as you get older, because a lot of the times the people that you went out with in high school and college, or maybe were friends with, it was so surface level. Like we all were just focused on like having a good time and hanging out with people for the fun of it. Like the amount of friends I had in high school, I was crazy. But they were just like acquaintances that I saw every time I went out, and they all thought I was like this fun, slightly crazy chick. And I loved being known by that at the time. But then as I started to grow and evolve, I didn't want to be known as that person. I mean, obviously want to be known as fun, but not like crazy or like mean or anything like that I thought I was. Um, but I think you just get to a point in your life as you grow and like find a better version of yourself that you want more fulfilling relationships. You want deeper friendships. You start to crave the connection of like people who actually get you like to your core and know who you are, versus just knowing like this fun version of you, if that makes sense. But eventually, whether you're going through it right now or if you've gone through it in the past, you're going to go through it in the future, you are going to get to a point in your life with some friendships that you just start to grow apart. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Like, I think we all get so used to thinking like, oh, I'm not friends with that person anymore, and some big thing happened to make that friendship not be a friendship anymore. And that's just not always the case. Like, yes, it could be a situation where they wronged you and you like recognize that they wronged you and you're like, you know what, I'm better off without. That's okay. Maybe if you're talking about like a relationship that you're in, that you're kind of just starting to notice that you guys are growing apart, you're not really challenging yourself maybe, or challenging each other as much as you would want to. Like, that's a way to grow apart. Like, why would you stay in a relationship or a friendship that isn't challenging you? I don't know. I'm just someone who's always trying to get better and like be better, and I want my friends to do the same. Obviously, you're going to have friends. You're going to have friends in different avenues. Like, there's some friends that you just go out with and you maybe just go on trips with and you have a great time, and that's that friend. You might have another friend that you have like really deep combos. You get together, have girl talk, and that friend becomes like deeper. You can have friends in different avenues, but I'm specifically talking about the fact that friendships can grow apart and they can just dissolve. And it's just bound to happen. One main thing that I noticed as I started to change, I hate that I keep saying that, but I really felt like internally I changed a lot between age like 22 to like 25. That was like my big change, and I'm still changing every single day. But that was the time that I kind of went through the biggest amount of like friend changes. That's around the time that I moved away as well. But the main thing that I started to notice is that I was feeling drained when I was hanging out with the people that I was with. I would leave and be like, that was so unfulfilling. I feel like they don't get me at all. I felt misunderstood a lot, and I still do. Like, trust me, there are situations where I hang out with people or like friends in my life, and I'm just like, oh, I don't really feel like they get me at all. And they might still view you as the person that you were in middle school, in high school, in college, and you might not be that person. And it's hard sometimes to be around people that don't accept you changing. Like, that can happen a lot in like with your family. Because your parents, or a lot of times your parents or your family members or whatever, have known you since you were a child, and they have formed this like idea of you. And ideally, would you want them to know you the best? Yes. But ultimately, as you get older, you spend a lot of time away from your family, versus when you were living under the roof, they knew you as that person. So they kind of hold on to that idea of who you were when you were living with them up until 18. But so much growth and so much change happens after that that your parents might not see your change. Your siblings might not recognize that you're changing. I mean, my parents have told me many, many times, like, you've changed so much in a good way. But sometimes I do still notice, like, having interactions with them where they don't really understand where I'm coming from or, like, really who I am to my core. And I am not saying this in a negative way, and it's not a bad thing. You just can't fault people for not fully getting you because they're not in your head, they're not in your thoughts, they're not with you all the time. But the thing I think we need to get away from is trying to over explain yourself and just trying to get people to understand. Like, you're going to exhaust yourself by trying to explain to people this new version of yourself. You're going to exhaust yourself by trying to get people to understand your belief system or whatever. Like, when it came to my faith, that has been a big change in my life. And a lot of people in my life don't fully understand it. Like, there's some of my friends who fully on board, they all believe in God, like whatever. But certain convictions that I have compared to other people, they just don't understand it. Like, when I talk to my family, they're like, how, like, some things that I believe in. For example, if we're talking about the idea of like sex before marriage, which is so controversial. I talked about this with Haley, but that is the one that my parents cannot get behind, which is so funny to me because they have a great relationship. My grandparents had a great relationship, but they just think that my idea of it, or like wanting to hold out for the person that I want to be with long term and like valuing that at a higher standard than a lot of our society does. It's so funny because my parents will like listen to the podcast and they'll be like, like, majority of us did have sex before marriage back in the day and we've all had healthy relationships. And I'm like, I get that. And I totally agree. And I'm like, you guys probably were with each other and that was the only person you were with, etc. Times have changed now. You grow and evolve. The society nowadays views sex in such a like frivolous, I don't know the word to use, but like just a non-serious way, which I cannot get on board with. And so my parents sometimes just have a hard time. They're like, you can't be so strict about things like that, or why do you believe it in that way? And I could sit there and try to explain my way out of it and explain why I believe what I believe, but ultimately, like, they're going to have their own opinions. I just think when it comes to faith especially, it's not your job to explain to people why you believe something. Like, you're just going to argue with people all day and it's not worth it. Like, let God handle that conversation and move on. I don't know why I just got on that tangent, but all that to say, people just have a hard time watching other people in their life change because it's uncomfortable for them, because it kind of forces them to look at themselves and be like, why is she changing so much but maybe I'm not, or why is our relationship changing? And I think the part of it that gets uncomfortable for people is they think there needs to be like a confrontation, and a lot of us don't want confrontation with that friendship that's ending. And they think they have to be like, you know what, I don't want to be friends anymore. And I just don't think that needs to happen. Like, I think you just need to let life happen as it's happening. And if the friendship feels like it's starting to fade, or let's say you're leaving interactions drained and you're just like, oh, that wasn't that fulfilling and maybe we're growing apart a little bit, maybe don't reach out to them. Like, you don't have to put in all this effort to make something work. I don't think friendships are meant to be that hard. I think friendships are such a gift. Like, they are the people that you get to just like choose as your family almost, and choose the people that you want in your life. And I think we have to remember that we have a choice. And if you've been friends with somebody for a long time, or you've been in this relationship for a long time and you're starting to change your mind and realize that they're not somebody that you want in your life anymore, it's okay to change your mind. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing. You don't have to be like, I don't want to be your friend anymore because X, Y, and Z, and you're not like me, and da da da. That does not need to happen. You just slowly but surely distance yourself. And maybe they'll start to grow and maybe they'll come back in your life in a different phase and you guys will reconnect and it'll be awesome. But I think Mel Robbins always talks about the let them theory, and just let people be who they are. Let them show you who you are. Same thing goes for relationships. Like, if you're dating, let people be who they are and don't fight back against it so much. Don't try to force them to be somebody that they're not. Just let them show you, and then you make your decision on how you want to move forward. I think that's the best way to go about life, because if we're trying to fix things and fix people and make this relationship work and make this friendship work, you're gonna stress yourself out so much. We just have to sit back and be like, you know what? I'm just gonna let them, and I'm gonna listen to like my feelings, and not, I mean, just listen to yourself and like your gut instinct that's telling you like, maybe that's not right. Like maybe I shouldn't be with them, or maybe we're not friends anymore. And that's okay. Or you can have a conversation of like setting boundaries. I, several years ago, had a friend, we used to talk on the phone every single day, like literally every single day. And we were such good friends through high school, into college. And then after college, I had moved away, and like life was just getting busy. And she was getting offended that I wasn't calling her all the time. And I just like didn't have time, and I didn't have the energy to have a conversation every day. And it was making her upset, because she's like, dude, I thought we were like friends. Like, what the hell is happening? And I literally just had to be like, I just don't have time. Like, I still respect you as a friend. I still want you a part of my life, but I cannot give you the same amount of energy that I was in the past. And you either got to be okay with that or you don't. And that's okay. And we're still friends to this day. Like, you just have to have the balls to have a conversation like that and set the boundary for yourself. And it's okay if they don't necessarily agree with it. And if they don't, let them leave. Like, if they get mad or upset, I don't know. I just think as we approach 30, like most of us here listening to this are probably in our 20s or 30s, you got to be mature enough to just be like, you know what? It's not personal. Like, it's a me thing. Like, as you grow, I don't know. I just think friendships are so amazing, but they can be difficult. And when they start to get really difficult, reevaluate and maybe just think, maybe they're not meant to be in my life anymore. Or maybe I'm going to set a boundary with them, and don't get down on yourself for that. Like, that is A-okay. The other quote that I love is, God hears the conversations that you don't, and a lot of times he protects you from them. And what I get from that is just, sometimes God is going to remove people from your life, and you're not going to understand. And you're going to be like, what happened? They were my best friend, or I had so much fun with them, whatever it is. But God is hearing the conversations that you don't, and maybe he's protecting you from something that you really don't need to know about. And when the day comes, you might find out about it. But until then, like, just keep it moving. Let them, and keep it moving. And don't feel like you have to confront them. Yes, maybe set boundaries, but just allow life to continue and be okay with your circle getting smaller. And I think it's a really beautiful thing. It's not always healthy to share like your whole life with like 20 people. Like, I just think that's messy sometimes. Like, I would rather have 3 or 4 really, really close friends than like 20 acquaintances, because I just don't think that's fulfilling. Like, I'm somebody who needs like emotional relationships. Like, I need to know you fully. I need to have deep conversations with you. And that is true of friendships or relationships. So if things start to get surface level, I'm like, okay, sometimes you can just keep that relationship at surface level. You don't have to cut them out. But just know that you're not going to pour a ton of effort into it if they're not doing the same for you, if that makes sense. I also just want to encourage you to all just be okay with allowing yourself to not be the person that a lot of people know you to be. And I don't know if that's confusing, but just like, as you find yourself, or as you go through like changing, and you change your mind about something, or you become a newer version of yourself, or you don't agree with things that you used to do in the past, whatever it is, you're going to run into situations where you interact with people that still believe to their core that you are the same person you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, a year ago. And for the longest time, I used to get so offended by that, and I would like fight back against it if somebody was like, I don't know, like if they said that I'm a bitch, or I gossip a lot, or I I don't know, have no emotion, or I'm just like hard, or I'm the party girl. Like if I ran into people that made me feel that way, I was always just like, oh my God, no, I'm not. Like, what are you, like, I would just get so quick to be like, no, I'm not. Like, I have changed so much. I do this and I don't like doing that. And I've just realized that it's okay to just be like, you know what? That is the perspective they have of me. And there's probably so many people, especially with social media, that I went to high school with that are like, who this girl is not the girl that I went to high school with. So fake, so whatever. And maybe they're not, but like if they are, I am just like, it is okay. Like I love to shock people. So if they're over there just like thinking I am actually lost my mind, I think it's funny. But just don't get offended when people think that you're the same person that you were a while ago, especially if they're not somebody that's actively in your life or like knows you on a deep level. Because when things like that happen now, I'm just like, you know what? You just don't know me, and that's okay. And you're not trying to get to know me. So if you want to know me as that version, it's okay, but I'm something different, but I don't need to prove that to you or to anybody. So just be okay with people misunderstanding you because it's going to happen the rest of your life, truly. The other wild thing that I think is crazy is how much people who don't know you, okay, so, going off of this, obviously, friendships, a lot of them know you really deeply, and whatever, as you change or do something new, you're gonna have those friends that like really support you and they're like, I'm so proud of you. But you're gonna have the friends that like stay quiet. But then you also have the acquaintances who I don't know why, I love it, but they almost support you more, which I think is just great. Like, it's just wild. Like, when I started my business with this health and wellness company years ago, I don't think any of my friends ordered from me for like a year at least. Like they were just like, okay. Like they didn't really say much. They were like, yep, you do you. I would like let them try the products when I was with them in person, but they weren't so quick to be like supportive. Um, it was a lot of times strangers or people that I've only interacted with a couple times. Um, or like with the podcast, it's a lot of times people that I don't really know that well that are listening to it and being so supportive and encouraging. And I just love that. Like, I don't love that for the fact that my friends, like, my friends are supportive. I'm not saying that any, wow, I have great friends in my life and they're so supportive of everything that I do. They probably can't keep up half the time because they're like, dude, what's next? But I just think it's so cool how sometimes people who don't know you that well support you even more. And maybe that's because they're not holding on to your identity so tightly. Like they don't care what you're doing. And then when you do something new, they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like I just love the cheerleaders that support you from afar. Like I just think that's so encouraging. I don't know. We love it. Okay, last thing I want to talk about before I bring this thing in for landing is making new friends because this is so relatable because making new friends is so uncomfortable. Can I just say? Like people are like, "Oh, it's so fun making new friends." No, it's not. I think it's so uncomfy. I I remember when I moved to California, I got on Bumble BFF and it's just it's like you're dating your friends. Like you're like, "Oh, do you want to go grab a coffee?" And then you have to just like talk about life and ask them about whatever. But just know, it's just a part of it. Like I when I was prepping for this podcast, there was a study that I read that was talking about how long it takes to make a new friend. And it said, oh, I wrote it down. A study shows that it takes 40 to 60 hours to form a casual friendship. 40 to 60 hours to form a casual friendship. It then takes 80 to 100 hours to become an actual friend, and then over 200 to become best friends. So it takes time. So, all that to say, just don't get like ahead of yourself if you go on one coffee date with somebody and you're like, ooh, that was like kind of awkward and I don't know if I want to hang out again. Or like maybe you do want to hang out again, but you're just like, that was so awkward. They're probably feeling the same thing. And just be like, just know it's going to take time to create friendships. And there's going to be phases of making new friends that you're really lonely. And you might go through a phase where you have one friend and you're like, wow, I am so lonely. I wish I was in the phase of like going out and partying. But just trust the process, pray about it, know that God is going to bring the people into your life that are meant to be there. And you haven't met half of the people that are going to love you in your life at this age. Like you are going to meet so many more people that are going to be so encouraging and loving and bringing you so much joy. And I just think it's cool when you see like on TikTok people who are like, I met my best friend in my 30s and they're like, it's like your soul sister. Like, it's so encouraging. Like, you're not going to always have the same friends the rest of your life, but also just know we're in it together. It's awkward. Sometimes I wish we were men. Like, men can literally just make a new friend off of talking about football. And it's like, us girls don't have that same thing. Like, we just don't. But anywho's, I hope this episode was somewhat helpful, encouraging. I hope it made you feel less alone as you go through friend changes. It's normal. Just give yourself grace, give yourself time, and just let people be who they are. Let the cards fall where they may. Like, and trust the process, because it's just part of growing. It's the growing pains of life, and we hate it. But it's part of it. So I hope this was helpful and encouraging. If you like it, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a review, whatever you do. It genuinely helps me so much. But I appreciate you guys and hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.